All right. Well, hello, folks. I was going to say good morning, but I suppose at 12:01 it's no longer morning. But thank you for joining us on this Friday before fall break. I know that it's probably everyone is trying to frantically get everything done and get out for their break. So I appreciate everybody being here. I'm just letting a couple more in from the waiting room. So my name is Nicole Trina Flores. I'm sure most of you recognize me by at this point, and I'm the Global Ed Coordinator for SCC. Just wanted to do a quick reminder. We have got a whole week of events coming up during International Ed Week from November 14th to the 18th, and we'll have events on every campus as well as Zoom. So please save the date for that. We'll be getting out details soon. Just a couple housekeeping things. Please make sure to mute yourself unless you are asking a question. And if it's entirely up to you whether or not you'd like to keep your cameras on. But with that, I will turn it over to Eder. He is one of our own. He's from our developmental English department, and he's going to talk about some amazing work he's been doing this summer, and I will let him introduce it. Thanks, Eder.
Thanks so much, Nicole. Also, could you allow me to have screen sharing capabilities so that I can get us going?
Should be good to go now.
Awesome. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us today. The title of our presentation is La Feria de Tonatico, which is a festival in my hometown in Mexico. And the idea here is to tell the story of how a town's fair and its traditions helped inspire and in turn fashion citizens of the world. So bear with me. It's a long journey towards the end. Hopefully this story is well told, like the essays that we asked our students to write for us. Oh. Okay. In this presentation, we'll be featuring a game that's very popular in Mexican tradition. It's called La Loteria Mexicana. And how this game that is very popular, also being a large feature in our town's fair, is at the center of this project that Nicole mentioned we did this past summer. And I wanted to share a little bit about our hometown. It's called Tonatico. It's in the state of Mexico, which is literally that's the name of the state of Mexico. It's a state that hugs Mexico City. I'm gonna share a different screen here for you guys to get a better picture of this. Let me see. Okay. So Tonatico is a small town about 100 miles southwest, I'm sorry, southwest of Mexico City. If I could zoom out of here, you guys will find this. There's Mexico City, there's our hometown. Okay. I'd like to offer you guys a panoramic view. You guys can all see this. Okay, so our town is mostly recognized by our Catholic Church. It's one of the most iconic buildings in town, easily recognizable for anybody who has ever heard of the town. And I'd like to just get us an overview of what it looks like from this vantage point. Okay. Interesting detail here. This here, right here, it's the home I grew up in. Thought I'd put that in there. Okay. It is a gorgeous town with just about perfect weather. It's what I envision heaven would be like. if it had perfect weather. And also wanted to share with you a video that I found on YouTube that showcases our town's fair. And in this video, we'll find a lot of the traditions. Let me see, where did this go? A lot of the traditions that are featured in the town's fair, and I will be outlining them as they come up. Let me see. Okay. This part real quick. Not this. So the town's fair is based on, or it celebrates our Lady, the Virgin Mary, and it has a long-standing tradition of pilgrims that visit every year from all over the country. And what the pilgrims are doing in this case are either returning to give thanks for either miracles that were conceded through their prayers, or prayers for current concerns that people might have, people of faith. And you'll see in this video that there are several things that come along with it that enrich this tradition, and I'll be highlighting them for the most part, including how the game of La Loteria is played during this fair. Okay. Just inside the church, all the pilgrims from all over the place. All kinds of vendors in these times. This is the stance of La Loteria. People in those tents are playing the game right now. This is some kind of ritual cleansing the soul. All the food stands. Vendors from all the surrounding areas. And all the games from the fair. That's Our Lady Mary, the image of her. All the artisans bring their work, sale. One of the features at night are the castles that are made out of fireworks. There you have it right there. Incredible display of fireworks. view at night from the top. This is all artisan work. Or Mexican treats, candy. So that is the town's fair in a nutshell. I think the video does actually a really good job at portraying most of its characteristics. And the song that's playing, I am not terribly familiar with it, but it is a narrative, a sentiment of a migrant who is living in the States and laments the fact that she has not been back to his home country in such a long time, laments the fact that the town suffers, laments the fact that several of his um, fellow community members never made it out of town. And it's a very common story across the country. Most small towns experience what we call fleeing talent. Um, and so, for instance, the population in my hometown of Tonatico has remained for quite a few decades now at 12,000 people. And that's because anyone who gets the opportunity to leave for either the cities or the US jump at the opportunity. And this is where I would like for us to meet two very talented people from my hometown that I got the privilege to work with this past summer, and who have been tremendous support in some of the ideas that I've had to go back to my hometown and contribute there. So I would like for you to meet Professor Erenida Dominguez Lealba and her twin sister, Professor Nereida Dominguez Lealba. They are the co-authors of the book Libro de la Lotería, which was inspired by the game itself. And I will let them tell a little bit more, tell us a little bit more about the town's fair, the game itself and its traditions, and how this book was used in this summer project that we recently conducted. So, let me go to the video. So we pre-recorded this interview. They are present with us currently, so they're watching. We will have a chance to say hi to them at the end of this presentation and interact with them if we have comments or questions. Okay, so one of the things that I asked them was about the town's fair itself and what we could learn from them. Here's what they had to say.
Eder, we're not able to hear it, so just give me 1 second. Let me see what's going on.
Okay. Dr. Saul, yes. In the meantime, yes, brain drain. It's the proper term. What is it that we call it in Spanish? Ere, ¿cómo mencionabas que era el término? Fuga de cerebros.
Yes, hello, nice to meet you. Fuga de cerebros is expression we ask to all of people who go to the hometown to another space in the world, fighting for the dreams like you, and they get it.
Yeah, so brain drain. It's great to know that there's a term in English for it as well. Okay.
I
and
apologize. I'm not getting it worked out. Anybody have some suggestions for me? Because I'm not getting it to work.
If the sound doesn't work, I have plenty of notes to carry this over. I'm glad that Professor Erendida and Nereida are with us, that they can help me out with this, so we can improvise if it needs to be.
I apologize. I'm
It's
not
all
sure
right.
what's going on with it.
This is something I myself wanted to test earlier, making sure that it worked.
We should have. We were chatting instead. Sorry about that.
All right. So no sound still?
No, unfortunately.
Okay. So let me stop sharing for a bit. Okay.
Is the sound set up to share like through the, there's a second at the Zoom, in Zoom you have that secondary to share your computer sound. Do you want me to drop the thing in the chat,
Oh,
Nicole?
Sure.
Let me try it one more time.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Pues
Hello.
Got it. Great.
It is a real pleasure to be able to participate in this Lunch and Learn for Global Ed. The truth is that being able to share part of our culture and our history is very important to us. As you have mentioned, we are very proud of this tradition. It is worth mentioning that the town's fair is the second largest in the state, after Chalma, and it is estimated that more than 1 million people visit the town's fair.
And so there's an origin story to the town's fair. Like I had mentioned earlier, pilgrims visit to see our Virgin Mary, La Virgen de la Candelaria. And there's a rich oral tradition that Erendida here will share with us, and I'd like to discuss that more at the end of the presentation.
There's a rich oral tradition that tells the story of how the Virgin came to us, and it dates all the way back to the colonial era here in Mexico. The icon itself is one of the few pieces that has certain features that can be specifically attributed to an artist. In one of the versions of these oral traditions, says that the Virgin comes to the house of a lady. The lady herself, along with several members of the village, were the ones who were praying to her. These stories date all the way back to the earliest 17th century. Part of the story tells that the image, the icon, was covered by the same people, and they were dressed, the icon, with several dresses that kept building layer after layer, and it wasn't until recently that the last 15 years the icon was revealed, rediscovered.
Okay. So I also asked them a little bit more about the game of La Loteria itself and the ways that it is played and its cultural significance, and this is what they shared with me.
Okay, bueno, Las personas, yo creo que en todos los
I
lugares
think that
tienen
humans all over the world have a traditional game. For instance, we think of Russians as playing Russian roulette. In the case of Mexicans, we're attributed the game of La Lotería Mexicana, usually among the family. Even though the origins of such game are not Mexican, I believe they are Italian. The more recognizable images that we have are that of the rooster. These images became iconic about a century ago and have been able to sustain their popularity over the time. One of the more emblematic cards and images is that of the bottle. It has been recognized as a mystical bottle, but in reality it is a ketchup bottle from Clemente Jacques, also the creator of the stack of cards. As for the actual game of La Lotería, the purpose of it is to fill out a straight line of 5 cards. It is very similar to the game Bingo, except for the fact that these images have been embedded in the collective consciousness of children to the point that these images are more recognizable and children learn them at an earlier age than they do the alphabet.
And so also playing the game
La
outside.
lotería en la feria es una gran tradición porque
Playing lotería during the town's fair is a great tradition. Basically, anyone with money, whether little money or a lot of money, they're willing to go bet whatever amount they have, and doing so in hopes of a big prize.
The cultural significance here, the game
Pues
itself.
en sí, realmente la Lotería Mexicana,
La Lotería Mexicana is a game that has grown with us Tonaticenses since our childhoods.
Las familias se llegan a reunir.
Many families gather not only during the town's fair, but also throughout the whole year. And these are truly some of the healthiest and most beautiful gathering events. On many occasions, you'll find yourself playing for an entire evening and will completely forget about other responsibilities such as pending homework, laundry, among other chores. Even so, people will continue to play.
Yo defendiendo la temática del juego y cabe resaltar que me encanta
I'll
jugar.
defend the theme of the game itself. I
Yo
should say I
creo
love playing the
que en
game.
verdad que es la clave el
I
pasar
believe
tiempo
that
con
it
los
is
niños.
critical for
Jugar
families
con
to
ellos,
play the
es
game with
decir,
their
si en familia yo
children.
juego con mis niños,
That
al
even
principio
though
puede ser
early on it can be a bit
frustrante porque,
difficult
siempre
for
ganan
children
los
to learn the
adultos,
rules
o porque el
and
hermano
to
mayor
learn that
siempre
gambling
gana,
does not always
o
pay
porque
off.
el hermano menor
Sometimes
siempre
the
se
adults
frustra de que el hermano
win
mayor
or
siempre
the older
gane,
sibling
pero es
wins.
muy bonito. Y
But it's
también en
still very
familia.
beautiful.
Los niños van a recordar el
Children
hecho de
will
que
always
los
remember
papás
that parents were
jueguen con
around to
ellos
play with them,
y que sean como
and that these were
constantes, que
moments
haya
of
pues,
quality
momentos
family
de calidad
time.
en familia que incluso pues puedan
And
abrir
it will
las
also
puertas
open the
a poder
doors for shared
compartir pues,
experiences.
experiencias. Yo creo que tanto la lotería como
I also
cualquier
believe
otro
that these
juego
types of
también nos
games
enseña de
show
la
us something
cultura
about our
y
respective
de
cultures
cada país o de
because
cada espacio porque nos cuentan ciertas
they tell us
historias.
certain
Y
stories.
también considero que
And I also
tipo de
think that these
proyectos y
experiences are
colaboraciones,
critical
pues, tienen que
in
ser
order to
constantes
fashion
para
an
pues, poder
identity.
generar una identidad, sobre todo como decía,
Especially as we
Tonatico es
noted, the
reconocido
culture in
porque
our
es un
town is
espacio
known
donde
for
las
creating
familias
this space where
juegan
family
en-
gatherings are
juegan,
healthy
pues,
and
cada fin de
enjoyable.
semana o en diversas
And
ocasiones,
these are the
pero la
memories that
pasan
will
bien,
shape
la
who we
pasan de
are,
forma sana,
and who we grow
y
up to
pues son
be.
recuerdos que nos vamos a llevar.
And so it is with this backdrop to the game itself that the twin sisters were inspired to write the go back here. Inspired to write this wonderful book that I had the privilege of coming across at the right time, right moment. It is a book that is based on the game itself, but it also bases itself on human rights. In this case, the book uses all 54 images to tell stories of values that have to do with the traditions of our hometown. It is meant for readers of the ages of 10 to 12, and it asks readers to reflect on the stories themselves and the values that they promote. The book itself promotes an identity of citizens of the world, and this was something that I had been wanting to use in a reading and writing course that I could go back to my hometown and conduct over a summer. So meeting Professor Erendira and Nereida was one of those moments of serendipity. It was a wonderful coincidence. So one of the things that we decided to do was to implement the book itself to see if we could get students to react and eventually fashion their identities as citizens of the world. So we decided to take the course to the school, the elementary school that we all attended, including myself. And we decided that this was ideal for sixth graders. Sixth grade is the last year in elementary in Mexico, just before they go into middle school. And so we thought it was age appropriate for them as they were getting ready to go to middle school. So one of the questions that we were asking ourselves was how to engage with the ideas of the text. And we developed the following set of goals. We wanted to promote, first and foremost, reading and writing habits with these students. And in turn, we wanted to see if we can encourage them to self-fashion their identity as citizens of the world. We promoted the idea that a better version of self also was a better version of the community, simply by improving your own quality, your own state, whether through education or work ethic or in any sense, if you are stronger, the community is stronger. We try to practice the values of equity, empathy, and inclusivity in the classroom. And we had a huge challenge and endeavor ahead of us that we had no idea what we were getting into. So the course had to be designed and cramped into a short amount of time because students were still in school when I visited. I thought I had estimated that by mid-July they would be out of school. Well, it turns out they were in school till about the last week of July. And so we had to move the course to Saturdays and Sundays. So this was the actual schedule for them. We met over 3 weekends, 6 meetings, and we started at 8:30 in the morning, where we gave the students breakfast. At 8:45, we did a game of loteria just to warm them up, because at 9 o'clock we were going to start our first reading session. And here, the game of loteria was not only just being part of the theme of the book that they were reading, but also part of the culture that they well recognized in the game itself. The prizes that they could win were all about school supplies, memory sticks. They love color markers, and the bigger prizes were like things like backpacks. So it was a great way to get them stimulated for the first reading session. And so at 9 o'clock, they would start the first reading session. By 11:15, we were all exhausted and hungry, and much of it was more our brains than our stomachs. And we took a half-hour break to eat. Then at 11:45, we came back to our second reading session, which was a lot longer than the first, even though the time was the same. By the time 2 o'clock came, everyone, including all the instructors, were exhausted, and we were happy to call it a day. And so the idea here was that students could read and immediately respond to the text. And so Professor Erendira and Nereida came up with these really elaborate books for them to engage with, books that they got to keep and have with them now to reflect on year after year. And it was a great design to have students still focus. So the reading and writing, reading especially, was based on comprehension, So they had pre-reading notes and thoughts that they could record. All the readings were done through audio recordings. So they would listen to the stories while the text was projected on the whiteboard. And every student was tasked to at least summarize 2 stories based on the cards that they had with them. And they did pretty well summarizing these stories. For what was worth, you think students were not listening, they were. And that's when they would be able to consider their reflections and any questions that they had. The writing part was mostly based on reflections because the stories told were based on human rights and values. One of the questions that kept reoccurring for them was, well, what if everybody did that? Right? What would the world look like if we all did the same? So for better or for worse, right? If I am someone who is very diligent about putting garbage in the right place in the trash, we asked the question, well, what if everybody did that, right? What would the world look like if we all did that? And that was another way of highlighting how valuable our actions were, right? That all of our actions create a ripple, even if we're not able to see what the ripple effect is. So writers were split in groups to discuss their answers with the assistance of instructors. They were also assisted with answering questions in complete sentences. That's something that we immediately recognized they needed help with. And they were graded based on completion, and they were assisted with revisions that focused on grammar and punctuations. Okay. So this is the inside of the book. So on the left side of the screen, like in this case, this is a section that talks about the value of identity. And so there are blank spaces on those rectangular boxes where they had stickers that they could place on based on the card images that they were reading. And below they have a description of what the main points of the stories are, and below that space for them to record their thoughts. So what is the value of shaping an identity? One of the questions says, the story of the sun talks about our mission on Earth. Think about how our mission on Earth help us shape our identity. So they would record their initial thoughts there. And on the other page, after the reading, they had the questions to reflect on. We figured if they gave us complete answers to these questions, once we remove the questions, what they would have is a short essay for every reading session. Okay, so this one was based on the value of identity, the value of integrity, the value of liberty, the value of nature. This was a wonderful one because we were able to promote the idea of nature to the point where at the end of the course, we decided that we were going to celebrate with them by planting a tree with them. And so this was something that they responded really well to. The end of the course itself culminated with a final essay, Yo Quiero Ser, which is short for I want to be. And everyone, including ourselves as instructors, wrote this essay at the end of the course. It was more in the form of a letter. It's a letter to ourselves or a promise to ourselves. The letter takes our dreams and turns them into a promise. So we made a promise to ourselves that we were going to be a certain type of citizen of the world. I mean, we can all decide what that would look like. And this was all based on the readings, based on their responses, their notes, so on and so forth. So everybody got a chance to do this. And we put this into a time capsule that we agreed that was going to be buried next to the tree we planted for 10 years. So we will see those letters hopefully in 2032. Okay. And these are some pictures of the work that we did. In this image, you can see the kids are playing Loteria. Okay, this was the most engaged they were, intently focused. Okay. And this is them writing their letter on the last day of class. There's me sitting there also trying to write my letter, the procrastinator that I am. This is graduation. We went to the wilderness where we were going to plant the tree and bury the time capsule, and this was their ceremony. This is the class of 2022. They got diplomas, they got prizes. I'll talk a little bit more about their incentive shortly, how we incentivized them. And then before we planted the tree, we had a pre-Hispanic ritual with Mother Earth. And this was done through a shaman from our community. Here's the shaman. The ritual was to ask permission for Mother Earth to plant the tree. It was an amazing experience. I've never been part of anything quite like it. The shaman gave us some gifts, some pre-Hispanic artifacts that I still have with me. Okay, to the left, you can see where the tree is. The capsule is going to go. Yay, there's the tree. And there's me holding the tree while everybody else is working with the shovel. I didn't feel very proud about that, but they asked me to hold the tree. Okay. And so I had a video of what the course did that I didn't get a chance to include in this presentation because I wanted to give us enough time to talk about this. And I like to bring this to a boil in a discussion. So the inspiration for the course, as you guys can tell, comes from our town, our traditions, but also what the town goes through. The town's economy is based on agriculture and tourism. But as we were talking about earlier, we suffer, like a lot of towns, from brain drain. I think Dr. Saul mentioned. It's just talent that keeps fleeing town. I consider myself part of that group, and have this desire to keep going back and making sure that I stay close to my town and contribute, because the economy currently is not stable. There are other factors that hurt the economy, including a very sad topic that I lament that I have to even mention, that has to do with our safety and security. If you have heard of the current state in Mexico, this is something very common in many small towns, that they are under organized crime ruling, right? So many businesses that are doing well are subject to organized crime, to coercion. They have to pay their famous quotas. So that kind of presence really depresses the economic incentive to grow a business, right? You don't want to call attention to yourself by doing well to your business, so you don't grow. And this is something that, again, is not specific to our hometown. It is the crisis that we face in. And these are all the things that we were trying to respond to or make an intervention with. And so one of the things that we decided to do with this course was to incentivize students to participate. We invited them to come to the course. We asked them the question, who here loves to play loteria? We got a bunch of hands that were raised. We visited the schools, actually. And then we asked them, well, who here loves to read and write? And, you know, the hands slowly went down. But the few that stayed up were interested in the course. And once they sign up for the course, we said, if you complete this 3-weekend course, we have an economic incentive for you. So we gave each student who finished the course successfully $100. And that was funded in large part by myself and friends from the community who live here in the States. And that was our way of saying, that we believe in our youth. We believe that they are the future, that they are the ones who are going to create a better, healthier town, and that there are other ways to generate prosperity that have that ethical ripple effect across the community. Okay. And so here I would like to open up the time that we have remaining for questions, comments, and open discussion.
Ed, are you able to see the chat? You had a
Yeah.
question there.
So the question is about the shaman. It's a really good question. So that the project itself started, going around as small towns tend to do by what is it, word of mouth, and it got to the shaman who offer his services for this event. And when I heard about it, I thought, well, it sounds like a really great idea. It's not that it was necessary, but we thought it would be something really cool to experience. Other thoughts and comments?
Yeah.
And by the way, the twin sisters are with us, and they're more than willing to also participate if you guys want to direct your comments towards them.
Hey there, I had a question.
Mm-hmm.
This game, is it, do you mostly play it just in childhood, and then as you grow older it becomes a very fond memory, or is it played throughout later in life? You alluded to similar to bingo or akin to bingo in the States. Is it, or is it more like a tic-tac-toe? I mean, I'm trying to get an analogy. Obviously it's neither of those games, but I'm just trying to think of it. Oh, go ahead.
So the point is similar to bingo, except that instead of numbers and letters, you get a stack of cards that is shuffled, and as the cards are coming out, you're waiting for your so you get the let me share this briefly here. So what we go back to that part. So as the cards are coming in, what you want to have is your cards come out in a straight line of 5. So that can be horizontal, diagonal, or even across, right? So at the top corner, there's a hat, there's a wheelbarrow, the entity of a black man, someone of upper class, and a violin, right? So you're waiting for those cards to come in. And as soon as you get 5 cards in a row, then you have won. We played this game since we were kids, and all of these images are stuck with us. I should note that when the cards are being displayed, there's usually someone who is in charge of the stack of cards, and every card has a proverbial saying, right? So we'll say something to the effect of like, you see that black boot at top, the stinky boot, or something like that, right? There are like short stories that accompany them. What is it? I can't think of some off the top of my head. But we play this game since our childhood all the way through adulthood, and it is truly addicting. Like, time ceases to exist when you play this game. It doesn't matter how much money you have. In the end, it doesn't even matter if you win or lose. You just have a wonderful time. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But it's not like one gets rich with this, or one, goes to bankruptcy. It's just for the evening. So you can show up with a couple of dollars and leave with $25, for instance. And so, sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, is looking at this, it reminds me of the tarot card. Is there any? It doesn't sound like there is any, but is there any mystical element to it? Because you said there were some meanings behind possibly some of the pictures, but it almost looks like a tarot deck.
Yeah, so the meaning that we have to is like how we closely associate with them. Like everybody has, for instance, their favorite card, and that's usually the one that you pick, the one that in the middle, right? So like if my favorite card was the one with the black man is what he's called, then I would always look for that one because I associate with it as, you know, my good luck card. But all of these images are very memorable to us. So when the kids are playing the game or when they were reading the stories, they were very familiar with the images. Now they had stories that the authors had written for them. And I should say this, I didn't mention this, that Professor Nereida and Erenda collaborated on this. Professor Erendida wrote the stories and Professor Nereida reinvented the images, right? So there are new images that they created based on the stories themselves.
That's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Other thoughts?
Hi, Andrew, this is Dr. Saul.
It's all.
Great. This is, wow, very, very interesting. First, I was just thinking, you know, doing these kind of cultural activities with the students and letting them, you know, culture and getting them writing skills like this. I think it can help. You talked about kind of the violent gangs around there, right? And there's evidence, for example, in Los Angeles, where gang members in Los Angeles, they will not hit or hurt programs that are helping, for example, their younger kids, right? Because they don't want that same life that they have for them. So this can be really transformative. This kind of social experiment you have here with the kids in terms of the larger community scene. Look at how it's helping my brother and sister. And so they don't take the path that I take, you know. Yeah.
Well, let me respond real quick to this.
Yeah.
I am not like that would give me hope if we had a similar effect. The only thing here is that the members of organized crime are not always from members of the community. They tend to be outsiders. And I myself have to admit that if it wasn't for the twin sisters who encouraged me, like I would not have built up the courage to even do something like this, which has no economic aspirations, right? And in fact, I spent all of my savings on this. So I'm terrified, but I still went ahead and did it. So.
Yeah. Another quick question for the sisters.
Okay.
I'm kind of older dude, but I grew up reading, you know, the Carlos Castaneda books, and we're around kind of mysticism, Bless Me Ultima, you know, Rodolfo Anaya. So I just wonder what the sisters think of literature about representing Mexican, you know, U.S. literature representing Mexicans.
Okay. Nere, ¿qué piensan ustedes de la literatura americana representando la cultura mexicana? Nere, you want in on this?
I understand, but I think my sister have more to say in this field. But American literature, I think they have other version of Mexican, even in movie and in book. Example, Mexico Barbaro. They show other view because they are outsiders in some way, like any in the world. I think everyone see the story like they go in the place, because many people know the big fire, the Mexican beauty, but they not know exactly the the life like we usually to live here. But it's interesting
I remember right now Mexico Barbaro when they explaining Porfirio Diaz life and how even Porfirio Diaz eliminate Yankee people. But it's interesting how the American see or Mexico, but it's I mean it's big, but everyone is different if we live in some place. I think, but I think I need have more to say about this.
Ere. Yo te traduzco si quieres, amiga.
Okay, yes, I understand, but I can explain everything very well. I can say, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak in Spanish. La literatura americana tiene gran influencia en México. Tengo la oportunidad de impartir esa materia y la visión que nosotros tenemos es tal cual el sueño americano. Para nosotros como mexicanos is a big opportunity to go to another country and learn about the new culture. Is Mark Twain, Walt Whitman, Hemingway. It's in mind in the child. And a veces we contemplate better the other authors that it's not in Mexico, but relative, they are better than the writing inside in Mexico.
Yeah, so to further the point that Ed and Ned are making, I've had the opportunity to I grew up bicultural, I suppose. I grew up in both the States and in Mexico. My parents played ping pong with me throughout my childhood. And so I even though I didn't come to literature until my early 20s, one thing that I can speak to is that effect, right? That we romanticize other cultures because of the inescapable ideology or ideological lens with which we come to try and understand another culture. So I tend to be a lot more tolerant because I understand the limitations that we have when thinking about another culture. But I understand why others might take issue with that as well. For me, I guess I can't always tell when representations are doing justice to a culture. So I normally try to value the effort that they try to make in those representations. These are great questions. I know Kate asked about the shaman and the role of the pre-Hispanic rituals. From what I understand, I mean that even the kids were very surprised by the ritual. It is not very common. You have to have an acute palate for history to really value anything pre-Hispanic. And so that's something to be said more about the education system. But in our efforts to construct an image of citizens of the world, we thought it was very fitting to think of ourselves in wider terms that were not just spatial, but also thought of as through time, right? Like, who are we? Well, we have to think about where we come from as well. Other thoughts or questions? Well, somebody asked earlier, and I think that they left. They asked me the question of like, what is my idea of ideal weather? So Mid to low 80s, dry heat, nice breeze. If you're under the shade, it's just heavenly. It's just perfect. That's what I would say.
Thank you, Adair.
Nicole?
I was just going to thank everyone for their time. Thank you. We truly appreciate having, giving a platform to our folks at the college. So thank you so much for your time, Adair, and thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you. And you guys are all welcome to visit the town any time of year. Tourists always have a wonderful time. We're very hospitable people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great fall break.
Yes, enjoy the break. We'll learn.
Thank you.